Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys. Okay, we are continuing our World War. Oh, I'm above 200 subscribers, by the way. Thanks, guys, so much. It means so much to me. I am trading off, being able to react to more people's videos, everyone's videos, and communicate more directly. But it comes at a great benefit of just having more you guys in here. Obviously, I want to grow as a channel. If you want to just learn about history or you want me to react to videos, hit that subscribe button. That's what we love doing here. And yeah, just keep it up, guys. Thanks a lot. A lot of motivation for me is just looking through the comments and seeing new ideas or videos. When I get more subscribers, I'll start doing more live stuff, and I'll have to do polls for videos. Anyways, let's get into it, guys. We are at, I found the playlist for the World War I on Epic History. So we are doing World War I, 1916. Let's get right into it.
Was supposed to
I think I switched my video screen problem for the video screen on that shows on YouTube. Yeah, it was kind of hiding some of the screen, so I think I fixed that. Sorry, let's get into it. I love this channel.
World War I.
This channel is it's like a roller coaster.
Was supposed to have been a short and glorious war. But by 1916, a new kind of industrialized warfare had seen the death toll soar into the millions, with no end in sight. Naval blockades were beginning to cause shortages of food and fuel across Europe, while thousands of women had entered the workforce, replacing the men sent to fight in their millions. All sides were preparing for a long war.
We've never really had this in a war, unless you guys know of one that I don't, where it's just we're going through, I guess, the late parts of the Industrial Revolution, but we've been through the big part of getting all this new machinery that creates new weapons. And everyone's just getting ready to fight this new type of warfare, and it's must have been very. Obviously, they thought it would be much more quickly, like other battles. Crazy time. Sorry, I'll try not to pause so much.
The war has raged for a year and a half as the Allies continue to battle the Central Powers, recently joined by Bulgaria. At sea, the British maintain their naval blockade of Germany, preventing the import of food and other vital raw materials. Germany has retaliated with a U-boat blockade of Britain, but has to limit its attacks to avoid provoking the neutral USA, whose citizens have already been caught in the crossfire. On the Western Front, French, British, and Belgian troops are dug in opposite the Germans, both sides trapped in the bloody stalemate of trench warfare. On the eastern...
So what's going down below Austria-Hungary? You see Serbia is still kind of holding out. It's got Bulgaria and the Ottomans on one side and Austria-Hungary on the other side. Is it because they're just not the biggest threat, and so Germany and Austria-Hungary aren't focusing their forces on crushing them? And are they just, I maybe should learn a little bit more about that. But yeah, I'm surprised that they're able to hold out.
In front, the Russian of trench warfare. On the Eastern Front, the Russians have ended their long retreat and stabilized the line, but their army has suffered huge losses. On the Italian front, Italian troops have launched a series of costly, unsuccessful attacks against strong Austro-Hungarian defenses. While on the Balkan front, the Central Powers have overrun Serbia, whose army is forced to make a bitter retreat through the Albanian mountains.
That answers my question.
Now, on the 5th of January, Austro-Hungarian troops attack Montenegro. They are delayed at the Battle of Mojkovac, but 3 weeks later, Montenegro is forced to surrender. On the Caucasus front, the Russians launch a surprise winter offensive against Ottoman Turkish forces. 6 weeks later, Russian troops occupy the city of Erzurum. In April, they capture the Black Sea port of Trebizond. Meanwhile, the British transport 2 motorboats to Lake Tanganyika in Africa. They finally arrive after a 10,000-mile trip by sea and land, and help the British seize control of the strategic lake from local German forces. The same month, in German Cameroon, German troops besieged on Mora Mountain for 18 months finally surrender to the Allies. It marks the end of the Cameroon campaign.
You know how big French West Africa is? Like, this is all ours.
On the Western Front, the Germans unleash a devastating assault on the French fortress town of Verdun. German General Erich von Falkenhayn knows France will defend this symbolic town to the last man. His plan, in his own words, is to bleed France white in its defense.
Is that a real photo? Who are these crazy people taking photos without, maybe they have a gun on them. Even so, they have their back turned to what looks like oncoming fire. Maybe that's 2 images spliced. I don't know.
It is the strategy of attrition. Verdun becomes one of the most terrifying battles of the war. A mincing machine, where infantry divisions are destroyed almost as fast as they can be fed into the line. In Britain, 1 million men have already volunteered for military service. But the government realizes it won't be enough. Britain becomes the last major power to introduce conscription. That spring, on the Western Front, British troops are the last to be issued with steel helmets. The nature of trench warfare produces a high proportion of head wounds. The German Stahlhelm, the French Adrian helmet, and the British Mark I steel helmet offer limited protection from shell splinters and shrapnel. Neutral Portugal has been cooperating with the British, which seems to offer the best chance of holding on to her African colony, Portuguese Angola.
Like, if you gave me those 3 options, I would probably go with the German
steel helmet offer limited protection. Has been cooperators and shrapnel. Neutral Portugal has been cooperating with the British, which seems to offer the best chance of holding on to her African colony, Portuguese Angola. On the 9th of March, Germany retaliates by declaring war on Portugal. On the Eastern Front, Russia launches an attack near Lake Narok to relieve pressure on the French at Verdun, but it's a disaster. There are 100,000 Russian casualties, and the attack fails to divert any German troops from the fighting at Verdun. In Dublin, Irish Republicans launch an armed revolt against British rule. It becomes known as the Easter Rising, and is put down after 6 days of street fighting.
Oh, this has to do with the, this is what Lawrence of Arabia is about, right? The Arab Revolt? I'm wrong.
In the Middle East, after a 5-month siege, British forces at Kut surrender. General Townsend leads 9,000 British and Indian soldiers into captivity. About half later die from starvation or disease. Britain wants Arab support in its fight against the Ottoman Empire, so it's promised Arab leaders an independent Arab state after the war.
What's with this little enclaved sliver of the Eastern Sinai Peninsula?
But now, Britain and France seek...
You see, this is, the future independent Arab state. This is, I think, where, obviously, just like what history is, that you can always trace something back to a domino that fell before it and before that. But this seems to be a big part of a lot of the problems in the Middle East. Kind of seem to be right here. With the breakup of the Ottoman Empire and a bunch of different deals that, the Arab countries, there's a lot of Arabs in the Ottoman Empire promised to be have an independent country, and then something with there were just a bunch of different deals that didn't go together. They contradicted themselves, and I think there has been an impact all the way up to today.
War. So it's promised Arab leaders an independent Arab state after the war. But now, Britain and France secretly signed the Sykes-Picot Agreement, planning after the war to divide the Middle East into British and French zones of control. Unaware of this deal,
What could go
Hussein
wrong?
bin Ali, Sharif of Mecca, leads the Arabs in revolt against Turkish Ottoman rule. In the Battle of Mecca, his forces seize control of the...
How do you just not see this as like, come on, Great Britain and France here? It's just they're focusing on Hitler, obviously, or not on Hitler. This is World War One. Although Hitler is a soldier in World War One for the Germans, they're focused on ending the Germans, and the Austro-Hungarians are their main targets. And so I guess this is a side thing. And hindsight's 2020. You got to realize in history that not everything is cut and dry as it is as we're looking back on it with all the knowledge we have than it is in the moment, obviously. But how do you not see this being a giant problem?
Holy City.
Maybe they did. I don't know.
On the Italian front, Austro-Hungarian forces launch a surprise attack at Asiago. Italian defenses give way. Austro-Hungarian troops are poised to break through into northern Italy. That month in the North Sea, the German High Seas Fleet clashes with the British Grand Fleet at the Battle of Jutland. In the only major naval battle of the war, the British suffer heavier losses,
Really?
but claim victory as the German fleet withdraws and does not re-emerge from its base for the rest of the war. For the summer of 1916, the Allies have planned major simultaneous offensives against the Central Powers, from east and west. Now they are needed more than ever to relieve pressure on the French at Verdun and the Italians at Asiago. The Russians launch their attack first. On the Eastern Front, General Alexei Brusilov has carefully maintained the element of surprise. His troops break through the enemy lines, in some places advancing 60 miles and taking 200,000 prisoners. This brilliant, though costly, Russian attack achieves its aim, as the Central Powers are forced to redeploy troops from other fronts to shore up the line. At sea, British cruiser HMS Hampshire, en route to Russia, hits a mine and sinks off Orkney. Among the 650 dead is Britain's iconic Secretary of State for War, Lord Kitchener. 3 days later in the Adriatic, Italian troop ship Principe Umberto.
I would imagine they kept that a secret, the British, in order to not, give the enemy too much confidence.
Is sunk later in the Adriatic. Italian troop ship Principe Umberto is sunk by a German submarine. It's the deadliest sinking of the war,
Germans are
with
ahead of their time
1,900
with the
lives
submarines.
lost. On the Western Front, Britain and France launched their major summer offensive, the Battle of the Somme. Hopes are high for a breakthrough.
This is one of those battles that even if you don't know much about World War One, it kind of clicks something in your brain like, oh, I've heard of that.
But the first day is a disaster. A long Allied artillery bombardment fails to knock out German defenses, and waves of British infantry are cut down by machine gun fire as they advance into no man's land. In the space of a few hours, the British suffer 57,000 casualties, a third of them killed. It's the worst day in the history of the British Army. But more attacks are ordered, and the battle will rage for another 5 months.
This moment, I think, is not just important in World War One, but in kind of human history of just, wow, this is how battles are now. This is how many people can die now. This is how efficient we've gotten at killing.
5 months.
I mean, people in general.
Encouraged by the Russian advance, Romania joins the Allies.
Hey.
But despite an initially successful advance into Transylvania, Romania quickly faces a counter-offensive from German...
Well, that's where Transylvania is. I'm just saying, this is off topic, but whenever, I guess, Americans kind of think of Transylvania, we think of vampires.
Bulgaria. Romania quickly faces a counter-offensive from German, Bulgarian and Austro-Hungarian forces. The Allied force at Salonika tries to support Romania by launching their own offensive towards Monastir. With Serbian troops in the lead, there are small gains, but dogged Bulgarian resistance prevents a breakthrough. On the Western Front, General von Falkenhayn finally calls off the attack at Verdun. The French army has honored their commander General Naval's promise. Ils ne passeront pas. They shall not pass. But victory comes at a terrible...
Is that where Tolkien got Gandalf's line from? I know I was watching some of the Tolkien Lord of the Rings appendices. I won't go too off in this tangent, but how I guess Tolkien didn't intend any allegory, but I know he was in World War One, and that's pretty spot on what Gandalf says. Sorry, back to the war.
They shall not pass. But victory comes at a terrible price. 365,000 casualties.
Wow.
The Germans lose almost as many.
Yeah, Verdun is another one of those names.
Verdun remains one of the bloodiest battles in human history.
Wow.
For his defeat at Verdun, Falkenhayn is sacked, and Germany's heroes of the Eastern Front, von Hindenburg and Ludendorff, take command in the west. Meanwhile, the Battle of the Somme continues. Near the village of Flers, the British introduce a new weapon they hope can break the deadlock of the trenches.
Gas?
It is called the tank.
Oh, I thought it was going to be
But despite
gas.
some small successes, the first tanks are too few in number and too prone to mechanical failure to make any real impact. On the Eastern Front, Russia's Brusilov offensive comes to an end. Casualty estimates vary wildly, but it's clear both sides have suffered catastrophic losses. Neither the Russian nor the Austro-Hungarian army ever fully recovers. On the Italian front, heavy fighting rages throughout the autumn, as Italian forces make repeated, costly assaults against Austro-Hungarian positions along the Isonzo River. The Battle of the Somme comes to an end amid autumn rain and mud. The Allies have advanced 10 miles at the cost of 600,000 casualties. German losses are about 450,000. The Allies reassure themselves that this is a winning strategy, because at this rate, Germany will run out of men first. Meanwhile, disaster engulfs Romania as the country is overrun by the Central Powers. Romanian forces suffer 250,000 casualties. The remnants of its army take position alongside the Russians on the Eastern Front. That winter, Franz Joseph, Emperor of Austria since 1848, dies. He is succeeded by his son, Karl. In Britain, Prime Minister Herbert Asquith is forced from office and succeeded by David Lloyd George. while General Joffre is replaced as French Commander-in-Chief by General Naval, who promises victory through bold, aggressive action. Amid the comings and goings, US President Woodrow Wilson's attempts to mediate a peace settlement come to nothing. Neither side is willing to make concessions.
Awesome video. Wilson's just like, guys, can we just get along over here? Obviously, hasn't sent troops in yet. Awesome video. I'm going to get part 4 out next few days. I will do a Napoleonic War, though, episode. Kind of been switching between to mix it up. Not get things too boring. Although this channel can never be boring, really. Awesome. Keep commenting, guys. Like and subscribe. Go check out Epic History TV. You won't be disappointed. See you guys next time.